Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Improving Communication in Industrial Settings with Rise Vision. My name is Jennifer, and I'm the Growth Marketing Manager here at Rise Vision. A large component of my role involves chatting with our customers to better understand how they're using digital signage in their organization. In this session, I'll be sharing those learnings from industrial customers with you. Prior to starting my career in marketing, I had a diverse career in the oil and gas industry in Alberta. My first role was actually as an apprentice welder at a semi-truck mechanic shop. I then got into quality control and then eventually into project management on the engineering side. I have a unique perspective because I've seen the shop floor and have also been on the other side as a white hat as well. So I'm sharing my screen, and so we're going to just jump right into what we're going to be going over in today's session. All right. In today's session, we're going to be focusing on real-world applications for digital signage in industrial settings, starting with safety and then moving into operational HR impacts. We're going to end the session with actionable insights and practical tips that you can apply to your own organization. My goal for today's session is that you have some sort of nugget that you can take away and implement right away. And then at the end, we will have a dedicated Q&A period. So if you do have questions, you can drop them in the chat while we're going through the content, or you can save them to the end and we'll answer them then. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Like I said, you can use the chat feature or the chat or the Q&A feature if you have any questions. A recording will be sent out tomorrow. And if you fill out our survey at the end, you have a chance to win a gift card. Your feedback is really important to me and to us to better understand other topics that you like to hear about and ways we can improve. All right, let's get into it. All right, so what is the role of digital signage in industrial communication? So industrial environments face unique challenges in communication. You might have deskless workers. You might have workers who don't have access to email. They might have email, but they don't open it frequently or they ignore it. You can also, if you go in with traditional signage like bulletin boards, you might run into information stagnation. So information stagnation or inattentional blindness can occur when information doesn't change on a regular basis. Like when you have pages and pages on your bulletin board, but they don't get updated. People tend to just walk past them and they're not taking in that information because it hasn't changed. So they just ignore it. This can be a problem because if maybe you are putting new content up, but if it doesn't look the same or it's not engaging, people aren't going to register it and they're not going to see it. Beyond sharing information, digital signage can also help improve employee engagement. So research suggests that employees are almost 3% more likely to be engaged when they're recognized for their efforts. And then according to another study conducted by Gallup and Workhuman, 80% of employees report being more productive when recognition and rewards are utilized to motivate them. So digital signage can be a really great way to recognize what your employees are doing and share those things across the organization. And that can be really motivating for production or just regular engagement. Current methods like printed posters, whiteboards, bulletin boards, they might not cut it, leading to reduced engagement and even compliance risks. So the cost of ineffective communication, you might have policies that aren't being adhered to. Those might be HR, those might be safety policies. You could have declining productivity if people aren't feeling engaged or they're not motivated. And then you also might have that low employee engagement. Digital signage is a tool that you can implement that solves those gaps and makes your overall communication improve or better and improve. I'm going to jump right into our case studies. We have 4 today to share with you. Just give me 1 second. All right, there we go. Perfect. So our first case study today is Rasmussen Mechanical Services. So Rasmussen is a leading mechanical contractor with 7 locations across 4 states. You'll notice in the case studies that we go over today that a large majority of them have a widespread workforce where they have more than 1 location, but they have centralized management of their digital signage. And this is one of those examples. So our champion over at Rasmussen is Ryan. He's the marketing manager. Previously, before they had started using Rise Vision, the company had attempted to use Google Slides displayed through internet browsers on smart TVs. We hear this often, but those kind of workaround solutions, they can be unreliable. And they can be really ineffective because they have a large time suck component where it takes a lot of effort to keep them refreshed, restarted, and then just keep that content going. Whereas with Rise Vision, it's a system that's made for digital signage. Ryan put it super eloquently that it was a nightmare. So, something to keep in mind for a DIY solution like that. As part of their communication, they also used texting to communicate with their employees, but the open rate on those texts only was about 60%. So 40% of their workforce weren't getting those important notifications. So they were looking for a different solution in order to communicate better. They implemented digital signage and deployed displays to break rooms and lunch areas. So these were areas that employees were naturally going to congregate and spend time when they weren't on the shop floor. So now on their digital signage, they're using it as a two-pronged approach for communication. They share safety information like safety KPIs, near miss reports, injury incidents, and they're using that information to achieve a zero recordable injury rate. So that's an amazing achievement that they have accomplished. And part of it is dedicated to digital signage. They're also using digital signage to engage with employees, sharing things like work anniversaries, birthdays, employee shoutouts. So, engaging with employees and ensuring that their achievements are recognized. So, improved communication, especially around safety KPIs, helped create a more inclusive and informed workplace culture. And this was really important to them because they had a culture audit that revealed that their employees had a desire for better communication and more recognition. So, what a great way to achieve both of those goals that their employees actually wanted and expressed than with digital signage. So, by using Rise Vision with other communication methods like texting, they have created a robust internal communication system that keeps every employee in the loop, which is great. Super happy to hear that. I'm going to go through a couple of examples. So you can see in this photo, they're sharing from a company get together. So that's great, expressing the culture of the organization. And then we have this example. So this is implementing sort of a gamification element where they're showcasing the top 5 most site audit reports. So those would be like your JHAs, job hazard analysis, and being able to showcase that is great for keeping safety at the forefront, but then also giving everybody a little bit of competition. Some people are motivated by that, so that works great as well. And then the third example is birthday celebration. So people love to have their birthday celebrated, and digital signage can be a great way to recognize that within the office. All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to move on to the next case study. So Crown Holdings is a leader or a leading global supplier of rigid packaging products. This case study features their Lancaster, Ohio facility, but they do have multiple locations across the US. And in this case study, the champion was Jeff, and he's the health and safety manager. So you'll notice that the case study champions or the champions of these organizations who are in charge of implementing digital signage, we have marketing managers, we have health and safety managers, we have people in tech, but we also have people in HR. So it really depends on your organization who is going to champion digital signage, but it's not necessarily a one size fits all. It could be anybody in the organization. So for Crown Holdings, they were using traditional methods of communication that you would think of for an industrial setting. They had a bulletin board, they had a whiteboard, and those were just really proving to be inadequate. The company needed a more dynamic and engaging way to share important safety KPIs and insights to ensure that the information was being noticed, but also was being retained by employees. That was a really important thing for them, is they wanted not to just be putting all this information out there, but to be having employees retain it and keep it at the forefront of their mind, especially in terms of safety. One of the other ways that they're showcasing or sharing information is corporate office sends a monthly safety focus, and they're able to push that out to all their displays. So that's a really great example of a way that you could have centralized content being pushed out across all of your locations, and it doesn't matter where they are. You're not on the phone trying to get a foreman in Arizona or a foreman in Pittsburgh to print off a notice and put it up on the bulletin board, you're able to push that content out automatically. And we'll talk more about that in the next case study, but I think that's a really great feature to highlight in this one. So in order to make sure that employees were going to see the digital signage, Jeff had the monitors placed above the clock in and out stations. Employees want to get paid, so they're not going to miss that. So every day when they go to clock in and they clock out, they're seeing that digital signage. If I go back a couple of slides in my presentation, this is a great example. So this is actually from Crown Holdings, and here's an example of their setup. So they have the display above the clock in and out station. So before you go on the shop floor, you're going to see that digital signage and get those notices when you need them. So in order to verify that employees are retaining that information, especially related to safety, Jeff implemented an element of gamification. So during their monthly safety committee meetings, Jeff runs a mini Jeopardy game where employees are encouraged to pay attention to the safety messaging and then answer questions related to that at the meeting. And then the winner becomes the champion, the safety champion. They get this really cool belt and they get to be the safety champ for the month. So that's a really great way to make it fun and engaging for employees. Besides safety, which is of course at the forefront of their minds, they also use Rise Vision to enhance their workplace culture by sharing information about employee milestones. So that might be a workplace anniversary, work events, and then that all of those different elements help create a sense of community and a belonging for the group. In this case study, we can see this photo. This is actually Jeff with one of his digital displays. You can actually see the clock in station right there, but they have the template. It counts up for last recordable injury, so that automatically counts up for you. So that's a really great template that we have in our template library. And then this is an example. I don't know about anybody else, but winter is here. It seems to be dragging, but in the summertime, we had a really hot summer, record highs, I think, across the nation. And so this was a really great template for sharing information about heat exhaustion, heat stroke, how to recognize the signs, how to prevent it. So another great template for sharing, especially in an industrial setting where your shop might be really hot, you might have, or that just the weather might be really extremely hot. And this is that example I shared about the safety. So the champ is here. Every month they award a different safety champ and they get to wear the belt. And that's by answering questions about safety from things that they've seen on their digital signage. So great examples from Crown Holdings about how to use digital signage as well. All right, moving along, if there aren't any other questions, we can definitely answer them at the end as well. Next case study is about First Fleet. So this is a trucking and logistics company with over 100 terminals across the US. I think they actually have close to about 140 terminals, which is obviously a huge effort to communicate with all of those different locations across the US. And in this case study, we had two champions, which is really fun. We had Brent, who was in their help desk, so more on the technical side. And then we had Elizabeth, who's the training content developer, and she's really taken over handling their content and how they're communicating across their digital signage. So again, this is a great example that your champion might not be in tech, they might not be in HR, they could be the training content developer. So it might be another role, could be marketing. It really just depends on your organization. And then this First Fleet I thought was really interesting because obviously I said one of my first jobs was at a truck and trailer shop. Interesting from the other side to talk with Elizabeth and Brent about their use of digital signage. So the challenge that First Fleet was looking to accomplish was implementing digital signage to improve communication and share company information. Obviously, communicating with over 100 terminals is really tricky and a really big lift, but they're able to do it from a central location, which really streamlines their process and makes it much easier. One of the aspects of their use case that's really neat is that each of their locations has personalized content. So they have customized content for every location across the US. So the content being shown in Arizona is going to be different than the content being shown in Texas or anywhere else. And it's so that it's really relevant to that audience. So like I said, each location has its own presentation managed by Elizabeth in her central location. The displays show localized weather. They have different information about the load statuses for the drivers. And then they also share engagement and recognition, like birthdays and different things that are going on within the company. Like the other examples, though, safety is number one. So safety communications are front and center for every employee, ensuring that essential safety information reaches the drivers and workers consistently and effectively. One of the other really cool things that they're doing with digital signage is Elizabeth has developed a proprietary software that shows managers where their drivers are. So they're able to just look at the display and keep an eye on where their workforce and their drivers are located. Elizabeth has these presentations set up so that at a glance, terminal managers can see where all of the trucks for the locations are. So if we're talking about all of the trucks for Arizona, that terminal manager can see where they're all located at that current time. So it refreshes every 5 minutes so the manager can see where the drivers are, if they're on their way back, if they finished their delivery. And that's really great, just information for the manager without having to call them or to check in and see what's going on. Using this has helped improve their operational efficiency. So not only are they helping terminal managers see where everybody's at, they also have a proprietary software that shows all the different load information. So drivers can show up at the terminal and they can go sit in the break room and wait for their load to be ready. And then they can look at that display and see that their load, it's getting loaded, or unloading is complete, or their next load is ready to hook up and drive off. That software that she's created and displays reduces delays and confusion. Everybody knows exactly what's going on to the minute, which is a really great example and a way to use digital signage. So a couple of examples from First Fleet. So we have this example in the background. So this is one of their dashboards that they've created. This is the example that I shared about their trucks. So they can see at a glance where all of their trucks and drivers are at any given moment. And then they have a more narrowed down view so they can see where all of their drivers are for that terminal. And then this is another way that they're mixing safety and engagement. So all of their drivers have dashboard cameras and they share safe driving practices and safe driving videos. And then they share those videos and they have a QR code so that drivers can vote on their favorite one. This is a great way to encourage drivers to be safe, but then it also is encouraging them to engage with the content. They're voting, there's a prize involved. So it's like another gamification element that just makes people want to participate. All right. If there are any questions about the three case studies that we've gone through so far, I'm going to jump to our last case study, and then we will talk about ways to implement digital signage in your industrial setting. All right, so last one is Louisiana Pacific. This is an unpublished case study, so you're getting a little bit of insider information, which is fun. Louisiana Pacific is a global leader in building materials. It was actually really fun to talk to Roxanne, our champion over there, because I got to learn a lot about OSB and building materials, information that I might not have otherwise known. But this case study features their Tomahawk, Wisconsin facility. So similar to the other organizations, they do have more than one facility or location across the US, but this is just, we were just talking to Roxanne, the human resource director at that location. So before implementing digital signage, they were relying on physical bulletin boards, and Roxanne had shared that they had been using the same bulletin boards from like the 80s. So they were a little bit outdated, but it was also really ineffective and time consuming because Roxanne had to go create the content, print it off, walk around to all the bulletin boards, update them. You don't know if people are seeing that content, just not the best use of her time. Bringing in digital signage, which is something that she had used before in her previous career in healthcare, they brought in the digital signage and now they're aware, they know that employees are seeing those announcements. So they have 8 displays, including one positioned outside in the lobby that greets employees, contractors, visitors. And this is a really great example of a way that you can expand your digital signage from being more than just an internal communication tool, but you can share information with your guests and your visitors and make them understand more about your workplace culture, show them all the really cool things that your business is doing. And it's just a great way to greet people when they come in. Maybe you have wayfinding if you have a large facility, maybe you have the weather, just another great way to engage with people who are coming into your building. Inside the facility, though, they have screens in the break rooms, near time clocks, in other high traffic areas where employees are going to see those updates and they're going to see them in a timely manner. So digital signage has changed the way LP communicates with its employees, leading to improved safety, engagement, and overall morale. And actually, in this case, we have some hard proof of that. So in 2022, they conducted an engagement survey to assess their communication effectiveness, job satisfaction, and the overall morale in the company. The survey at the time revealed gaps in how information was being shared, with employees expressing concerns about missing updates and feeling disconnected from the company's broader goals. So, those are things that the employees shared with them, and they addressed them by implementing, or partly by implementing, digital signage. So, following the implementation of Rise Vision, the follow up survey was done in 2024 and it showed significant improvement, tangible evidence that it was working. Employee engagement scores rose, and this time the Tomahawk location was in the top tier of the company for communication scores. There were also several positive comments about the Tomahawk TVs and how much people enjoyed digital signage. It's cute, right? They're in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. They call them Tomahawk TVs, but people like them. That's what the surveys are saying. In this case study, I don't have a ton of examples of their content, but I do have this one, which I think really showcases that you need to create content that works for your audience. In Tomahawk, Wisconsin, they're really big into hunting and fishing, and LP's leaning into that, and they're meeting their employees where they're at. They have hunting competitions, they have fishing competitions in the summertime for the biggest fish, and in this case, it was the biggest buck wins. Great way to engage with your employees when you're sharing their interests. All right. So that's our 4 case studies. I'm going to move in to just summarize some of the things that we've learned from these case studies. We've seen how digital signage can transform industrial communication. It's dynamic, it's engaging, it can be customized to meet specific needs, whether that's at a localized facility or sharing information broadly. There's lots of different ways that you can use digital signage. By using Rise Vision, Jeff spends just 15 to 20 minutes a month updating the content versus before he used to spend 5 hours a month updating the whiteboards. So that's a huge time saver. And those kind of things really add up. And we also talked about the centralized management. So I said that I shared that Elizabeth with First Fleet, she manages the content for 100 terminals and is able to customize it based on what their needs are, based on their location. So centralized management streamlines, saves time. And I didn't share this before, but Ryan from Rasmussen, he had shared, so with their 7 locations, he's able to check the Rise Vision display management and he can see when a display is turned off, if it's offline, somebody unplugs it or unplugs the media player and plugs in their own device, he gets a notification so he knows, hey, you guys need to turn this display back on. So those kinds of tools help save time if you're implementing digital signage. And then last, I wanted to just share a couple of tips for implementing digital signage in your organization. We've talked about the personalization and customization. You start by identifying the unique needs of your location. Customized content ensures that it's relevant and that people are going to pay attention and engage with it. But you also need to assess how your needs for that location might be different than the needs from another location. Maybe you don't have time clock punch out stations. Maybe you don't have a lunchroom. Maybe you do. You just need to adjust based on each location's needs. It needs to be personalized. For hardware and getting started, there are lots of affordable hardware options. The Rise Vision Media Player is a great option because we help manage the tech so that you don't have to have that on your plate as well. Or you can reuse the hardware and TVs that you already have. If you have a couple of smart TVs, maybe you have a media player, maybe you have a smart device. Those are all devices that you can use because Rise Vision is hardware agnostic. So use what you already have. And then update the content on a regular basis, or updating content on a regular basis ensures that people keep looking at the displays and your efforts aren't wasted. We talked about information stagnation. So if you put up you put up 20 presentations on your displays and then leave it for a year, nobody's going to look at it because it's effectively the same as having that bulletin board. You need to be refreshing that content on a regular basis so that people are constantly going to it to find new information, and it's not just the same thing day after day. And then gamification is a great element for engagement. Fun works. You can use that for sharing messages, sharing safety information. We have a couple of examples. Crown Cork is using it. They share safety information and then quiz their employees. First Fleet is encouraging their drivers to share safety videos and then voting on which one's their favorite. Those kinds of elements just really help engage with the employees. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was that digital signage doesn't replace other communication methods. Digital signage becomes part of your communication strategy. It's enhancing those other communication strategies by reinforcing messages and improving visibility. So in this pyramid, you can see digital signage. It's the foundation. It's always visible. It's consistent. It's always there. So it's a great way to share a lot of content and a lot of messages. Then your middle layer, your email, your mobile apps, texting, those kind of options. Those are supplementary tools that can be used for more precision messages that maybe don't need to go to everybody, or you can still use that as another layer of communication. Rasmussen uses digital signage along with texting, but their text only has a 60% open rate. So by using digital signage, they're increasing that overall visibility and communication. And then the last element is digital signage can't take away from the human element. Safety meetings, huddles, your daily stand-up, all of those meetings are super important for sharing information, but digital signage just becomes another layer to that and encourages people, this is what time the safety meetings are at. This is what time those important meetings we're having or training is at. It just becomes another way to communicate that with your workers. For example, we mentioned Rasmussen with the texting. Crown Cork combines digital signage with interactive features like gamification. First Fleet has a proprietary app that they use for driver communication. So it doesn't replace those methods, it just adds on to them and makes them more powerful. So that is it for my presentation. I'm going to open it up now to questions. If you do have any questions, please drop them in the chat or use the Q&A feature, and we will dive into those. A couple of things. Can digital signage integrate with our existing software tools like safety systems or operational dashboards to provide real-time updates? Yes. So the answer is yes. So Rise Vision integrates with emergency alert providers to push CAP alerts or common alert protocol alerts. These are really common in education, K-12, for things like intruders or active shooters, but you can even use them for weather alerts. So maybe there's a hurricane or a tornado, snowstorm. You can push those emergency alerts and they'll overtake all of your displays. We also integrate with Power BI if you have different dashboards that you want to share or different KPIs. You can also really easily share like a Google spreadsheet or Excel spreadsheet. So there's lots of different integrations. So you can share that information that you already have. It doesn't have to necessarily be a proprietary software like Elizabeth from First Fleet has created. If you don't have the developer to back that, we have lots of other integrations that you can use. And then what type of hardware is best suited for industrial environments, especially where there's concerns like dust, vibration, or extreme temperatures? So with the four examples I shared, you're going to see that the displays are commonly in lunchrooms, lobbies, they're outside of the main shop areas. If you do want to have a display or a TV in a shop, you do need to make sure that it's safe for in that shop or in that dusty environment. Putting it in a lunchroom or break room or outside of the shop is maybe a better bet because you know that people are going to see it and your hardware and your TV is not going to get damaged. The Rise Vision display, it's not dust-proof in terms of being intrinsically safe, but it is fanless, so you can use it in a more dusty environment. You obviously do need to protect it though from having dust accumulate or having anything accumulate on it. So yeah, just use common sense when you're putting displays out on a shop floor and making sure that they're protected from welding sparks or anything like that. And then what are the costs associated with implementing a digital signage system? Depending on what hardware you have, it might be just as simple as getting a subscription to Rise Vision and then getting started with that. Maybe you don't have any hardware, you need display, but if you don't have hardware, then you need a display, media player, and then Rise Vision or whatever digital signage software you're going to go with. We've heard from people like Ryan that DIY or homegrown system might be free, but it also might be really cumbersome and it might be a time sink for your workers. So something to consider. But we do recommend that you start slow and scale up. Digital signage can be part of a longer rollout plan that fits your budget and your organization's needs. But you don't have to roll out 10 displays all at once. Put in a couple of displays, test the waters, get used to it. And then as you see how much it can improve your communication, add more displays and hardware then. All right. If there aren't any more questions, I'm going to give you some of your time back. Thank you so much for joining us in this webinar. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're on LinkedIn, or you can visit us on our website at www.risevision.com to get a personalized demo. Thank you so much for being here and have a great rest of your day.